Brands on Brands.
Hey, what's up, everyone? We're talking about your personal branding journey this week. That's right, going from who you were to who you want to be next. Check it out.
In a world where content is king and your reputation is your brand, how do you build a brand that matters? Welcome to Brands on Brands, a home for those that think different and push their boundaries. This is where branding that matters lives. Now, here is your host, Brandon Birkmeyer.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Brands on Brands. I'm Brandon Birkmeyer, your personal branding coach, and I believe that building a brand today is the only way for you to thrive tomorrow. Appreciate you guys tuning in each week where we talk about personal branding, the brand of you, how to take your journey, your story, and build the business around your reputation. I hope you guys have been enjoying the show. If this is your first time, make sure to go to brandsonbrands.com and check out all of our resources and tools, and also subscribe to our weekly email where you get the latest of what's going on with our show. And if you haven't listened to the 4 stages of personal branding, that's episode 176, where we kick off this season and start you on your journey, make sure to go back to episode 176 and take a listen. And without further ado, let's jump into the show.
Brands on Brands.
All right. So how do we get from who we used to be to where we want to go with our personal brand? That's what we're talking about today, your personal branding journey. We're going to answer a few questions today because I know that when I was getting into my journey as a personal brand in terms of figuring out how I wanted to tell my story to the world, get my name out there, build my reputation, it was definitely a journey. And the things that come along with us and the roadblocks that we run into are all in our minds, right? They're all in our minds. But where it comes from is our history. And our history is sometimes at odds with our present day and what's going on right now, and definitely at odds with where we're planning to go. And what I mean by that is our identity is changing, right? It continues to change. And it is hard to remedy that. It's hard to remedy who we used to be is changing because it's been a part of us for so long. So I want you to think about this. I want you to think about who you have been in the past and those, how you would typically have introduced yourself, the job you had, the skills you had on your past journey, what those strengths were, what those weaknesses were, but really the strengths, right? The skills. And think about all those things that made you, you, all those things that contribute to your resume, that were part of your reputation and your story. And think about the who you used to be, right? And maybe a little bit of who you still are, because obviously you don't lose those things. Now, answer that question. Who were you? If you take a little time to think about it, it's a bit to me like the Ghost of Christmas Past. If you've ever seen the Christmas Carol, the show, the movie or the musical or whatever you want to call it, there's this thing called the Ghost of Christmas Past. And it's, all those things from the past that come back to haunt you a little bit. And that's how I think about this. Who you used to be is an integral part of your identity and who you plan. And what I want you to do is leverage those skills. And we'll talk about how to do that, right? But after you've outlined who you were and what those skills were, like list it. These are the skills I had. This is how people would call me in terms of my title, or what they would describe me as in terms of introducing me to the people and what I'm good at, what I'm known for. Write all those things down for who you were. Now, think about who you are right now, how you want to help people right now, and what you are capable of helping people with right now based on your current skills that you have confidence in. What is that? Is it different than who you were? If not, then figure out what it is that you'd want to change to make it different, right? Because if you're listening to this and you're branding yourself, you're usually on a journey to something you are chasing, okay? But the who you are now is important because sometimes it's very confusing. You might be in a point that's so in the middle of who you were and what you're chasing that it's confusing and you can't even figure out who you are now. So I'm going to kind of go through this list. There's going to be a few identities I want you to write out and describe. One was who you were. The second is who you are now. The third is who you are becoming. And the last is who do you need to be to others in the future, right? So that's what we're going to think about. The who you are now for, let's say that you were working a corporate job. Like, let's just talk about me because it's a little more specific, right? So I was working a corporate job. I worked in brand strategy for 18 years before I jumped into being an entrepreneur, right? And for me, it was, how I identified myself. I understood branding and marketing and media, and I had some skills. And a lot of it related to corporate clients, right? That was who I was. And the last, specifically, if you get more specific, the last 3 years, my last job was working on clients that were fast food joints, right? So specifically Jack in the Box, right? So I was working on that account. So when I entered the consulting business, I, was debating this idea of, well, am I the restaurant marketing guy, right? Is that my thing? And that debate became confusing to me because it was who I was the last few years. In a grander scheme of things, I was the marketing guy for retail. I was a marketing guy for consumer products. And in general, I was a marketing guy. But when you get into like specifics and people ask you to niche down and you're trying to do that for the who you are part right now, it gets confusing because to niche down, you start to look at who you were. And I think to pick a niche, you have to look at who you are becoming, right? So when I looked at who I am now, I was like, okay, well, now I'm trying to be an independent marketing consultant that helps entrepreneurs and small businesses. But that skill set is different than working in corporate marketing. I had to learn my client's business. I had to learn my client's business. I had to learn their challenges. I had to learn how to solve them using tools and skills that I understood, and also using tools and skills that I had yet to learn. So who I was this kind of in transition person, right? But it was what I was now for sure. I was no longer doing corporate marketing. So the problem with that is when you're in the middle of the who you are now, sometimes you have a skill set that's missing and you might need to get out there and develop some new skills or learn how to apply what your old skills were to your new role, your new identity. So that's where I was. I had to learn entrepreneurship and I had to learn small business and understand how I could help them with my past skills. So that might be where you are right now, is you've maybe left already and who you were is that person, and who you are now is trying to help somebody, but you are still learning, how to work with that person and what those skills are that you need to be helpful, and even what your services are and how you set up that offering, right? What is your offer? So that's the hard part about who you are now. But I'll tell you, the light at the end of the tunnel is this is something you can clarify simply by being open and finding people you trust to work with and working through that with them and starting to develop what you figure out is like how you can help people the most. Sometimes instead of overthinking it, you just need to try it and get out there and try to help people in different ways. And as you try different things, you'll start to realize that there's certain things that you just enjoy more or that you're better at, or that there are skills you want to bring to the table that you didn't know. And if you can learn them, you can apply them to these clients, right? So that's who you are now. Who you are becoming is this kind of ghost of Christmas future, right? It's this vision you have for yourself and who you want to be. And what's hard is trying to chase that is confusing because you want to introduce yourself to people as like that thing you want to be next. But you have massive imposter syndrome around, not actually being able to deliver upon that goal of like, you don't have those skills yet. You are not that person yet. You are not an established authority in that space yet to where you could own who you are becoming. So what I would say to that challenge is live in the who you are now while developing the skills you need and the relationships you need to be who you are becoming. You don't need to try to pretend that you are something you are not. It's okay to live in the who you are now. But to get to where you're going, there's a couple things that you can do. One is pick up some new skills that when you picture the person that you are becoming, what are the skills that they have? And compare them to what you have and say, okay, what do I need to accomplish to get to be that person that I'm trying to be? Right. And then also, what is the perspective that I need to develop to get there too? What are your opinions on the topics and in the space and for the people who you want to serve, for the person you're becoming? Start to develop that too. It's not just the actions and the things you know, it's how you speak and how you explain and how you teach the things that you want to be teaching people in the future. So for example, I was teaching people marketing, like general marketing for small businesses, but I wanted to get into this personal branding space and podcasting space, but I had to get better at it. So I was learning those things, but also sharing my opinions on those things as I learned them so that I could develop my own point of view and my own perspective. Because what you don't want to do when you're becoming something is just to be a duplicate copy of someone else who you see as that future vision of what you want to be. I don't need a carbon copy of someone else. I need you, right? I need you to show up as you, applying all your past experience. So the only way to do that is to get out there, learn some things from these other people that have been there before, trying them and learning, and then applying it, and then coming up with your own perspective on it. And your experience with that is what's going to be the special sauce in the who you are becoming and getting there faster, is you actually trying things, having opinions about them, failing a little bit, winning a little bit, so you can explain those failures and wins and losses to people in a real contextual way, because you've actually done it. And when you've done it, when you've experienced it, when you've come up with opinions on it, you start to eradicate that imposter syndrome because you're actually doing it. You're actually becoming that person that you want to be becoming. Okay. So that who you are will start to transition it into that naturally. You know, it doesn't have to be a set goal, but just, you know, like that happens in 2 months or 1 month or whatever. But you do have to have that vision of who you want to be and be striving to get there through skills that you're acquiring and perspective that you are developing. Okay. If you can do those two things, you're on your way. And the last piece to apply to all of this is figuring out not just who you need to be, but who you need to be to other people, right? And what that means is not just like the skills you want to develop to be who you want to be, but if you actually wanted to help people as that future you, who would you need to be then? You know, if you had to, would you add new skills to that list? Would you need to actually be working with more people to have enough experience to help that person? Who do you need to be to them, and who do you need to show up as? Maybe it's just that they need, like the future customers of you need to have confidence in your opinions. They need to have confidence in the work you've done. They need to have confidence that you understand a system and you've become consistent in that system so that they know you can deliver results. Like, what do you need to do so that other people are going to align with who you are becoming, right? And the best way to do this is to not just think about the things you want to learn, but think about what is it that the people you want to help need and how can you help them the best? And sometimes that means, gosh, what it seems like everyone is having troubles with and struggles with is this topic or this thing. I don't know the answer yet. So you go in and you try to solve it and you work through it and you work at it and you help people with it until you get to a point where you consistently can say, you know what, I've solved this problem, or I have a pretty good solution for it. Now I want to try to deliver this over and over and over again. But the difference is it's coming from real life problems that you've seen people have, as opposed to things in your head that you're just strategizing, right? I actually want you to get out there in the field and try things and get out there and help people. And when you can deliver on that consistently in a way that you can explain, suddenly you have a curriculum, right? You have a set of steps, a set of operations that are going to give people a result. And when you can deliver results, you are now owning your identity and living in who you want to be. And you can set goals for the future beyond that, but where you are right now, like let's picture you as the who you are now is who you are this day in the present. And then every few years, every year, every whatever, few months, you'll continue to adjust this scenario and always be developing new skills and growing and adjusting who you're serving. But those are the four things, right? I don't want you to lose the who you were. You do need to not go backwards. I don't want you to start doing the work that you used to do anymore, but I'd love you to take those skills, bring them with you, and then murder the person you used to be. Not the skills, just the identity, right? Bring that with you as experience, history, and knowledge, and then apply that to who you are now, and then bring with it that curiosity to become who you want to be for yourself and for others. That's the road to being uniquely you, to being an ownable personal brand in your industry that is authentic, that has been there, that doesn't have imposter syndrome, that believes in what they are selling, that believes in how they are serving, and is actually making an impact in the world. So that's my lesson for today. I hope that really resonated with everyone out there. And if you have stories of how this is resonating with you, of who you were and who you're trying to be, I'd love to hear all that. Reach out to me on Instagram at @BBerkmeyer, at Brandon Berkmeyer, and tell me your stories. Screenshot this episode. I'd love to hear it. And as always, I hope you guys took a lot from these lessons today, and I look forward to talking to you next time.
You've just taken your marketing knowledge to another level with this episode of Brands on Brands. But we have plenty more ways to help you build a brand that matters. Head over to brandsonbrands.com for resources, as well as access to our blogs, videos, and exclusive coaching sessions with your host. Be sure to visit brandsonbrands.com.